the 10-day retreat, my wish is that you will take it with you. Whatever you have faced, whatever you have, or the challenges you have found yourself facing, you won't let that stay in this place, at this time, in your past. You will constantly be open to challenging yourself. And that happens in every single millisecond. It's amazing. It's amazing. As I was coming down the stairs, every single step is a gateway for arahantship, is a gateway for nibbana, is a gateway to understanding yourself. Push the envelope. Do not be afraid. Some of you, if not all of you, have faced fears, discomfort. And as a teacher, I am supposed to push those buttons compassionately, with tons and tons of metta, hoping that something can get through to you. So you can learn something that you haven't learned about yourself yet. That's why they're called intensives. That's why they're called retreats. What are you retreating from? Have you ever thought about that? I am retreating. I am going on a retreat. What is that? I am going on a retreat? No, you're retreating. Retreating. In other words, you're secluding yourself. From what? From all the jargon you tell yourself, all the lies you're expert at telling yourself. Now the problem is, many of us take those folders with us, those invisible folders with us. And we have a series of responses. When we hear something from the Dhamma, yeah, but what about this? These things have worked for me, so they must be valid. Okay, so this is a keeper. This is a keeper, this is a keeper, this is a keeper, this is a keeper. And then you end up totally unchanged. Maybe a little bit, because hey, you haven't had dinner. You haven't moved a lot. You had to wake up earlier. You had to sleep later. Probably some of you haven't slept for a couple of nights. And that would be it. That would be it. Not much has changed. Not much has changed. Why? The retreat, any kind of retreat, whether it's a 3-month retreat, 8-year retreat, 10 years retreat, 10-month retreat, whatever, they fail miserably if they do not help us to learn how to face the fears we have, safely tucked in. Going on a retreat means you are taking up a challenge that normally you would not. You would not. You don't need to, because you're busy. You have other things to do. Other things to be engaged in, be occupied by. In the old days, there are some people, very rare, but they still do this, monks, but they're rare. But in the old days, the Lord Buddha would send the bhikkhus out into the forest, the jungle. And there would be huge snakes, cobras. There would be tigers, Bengal tigers. There would be all kinds of spiders, biting ants. And there would be wild elephants that do not care who you are. They will see you as a threat in their own territory, and they are very territorial. They will take you down. Plus your own fears. In the dark, there's no lights. I'm just listing the big ones. There's far more fear-causing agents. So that would be a retreat. We don't have that today in modern cities like this, in the world. So what do? We try to create or recreate the conditions that would allow us to get a snippet of that, some sampling of that, to face the fears. But what many of us do, and will continue doing, is that we will somehow manage to sneak in with us onto the retreat our tactics, our ways to soften it, our ways to distance ourselves from it, and not gain the most that the retreat could have given us. So 10 days is not that long of a time to really go deep. But for some people, it might be enough to push the buttons. Some of you started crying. Some of you really felt like, oh, whoa, this is too tender. I don't want to go there. Ooh, this is too much. But then you allow yourself. That's a fear that you're trying to understand and overcome. You see, fear is one of the worst enemies you could face. And like I was saying the other day, emotions, especially fear being an emotion, is one of the big ones that the world is using on the public globally. The biggest emotion that human beings have been feeling, the loudest emotion that we humans have been feeling for the last 3 years or so, is fear. Not happiness, not joy. Fear. That is the common denominator that no one's talking about, which is very interesting. They talk about depression and things like that, but fear is at the bottom of it. We call it stress. Again, it's fear. After you pass through stress, you will come down to the bottom floor, the basement, and that is fear. The foundation. So fear is one of the worst enemies you can have. But you have to understand, human beings have come up with different tactics, methods of dealing with fear. The first reaction or the first attitude that human beings have, or any organism has, is to run away from it. We run away from it because it is very uncomfortable and we find ourselves in danger. It doesn't matter if you're physically here, everything's fine, there's no Bengal tiger attacking you, no spider attacking you, but the fear is as intense. It could be a look, it could be a word, someone resisting you, someone saying something. It could be any of those. The sound, we rush away, we run away. So that's the first. The second one is when people acquiesce. Acquiesce means give in. Not to the fear itself, but whatever demands are being placed on them to make the fear go away. Sure, show me where to sign. I'll give away my life. Just show me what to do. I'll do it. I'll do it. And that's exactly what human beings have been doing for the past 2.5 years on the planet. That has become the norm. You can deny it, but you know that would be futile. That's what we human beings are doing across the board. But that's not just something new. We've been doing this for a long time as human beings, but not on the collective level, globally. It has become the norm. And the worst thing about that is such a person who acquiesces, allows, gives away, sure, take my rights, sure, take this, whatever you want, my clothes, here it is, just leave me alone. And whoever doesn't do that, this person turns around and starts pointing fingers. All of a sudden they become somewhat quasi-courageous, suddenly, to persuade themselves that they're actually doing something. You should do it too. You should do it too. Like me. Be a coward. They don't say that. Then there is a third category of people facing fear. Those are the ones who are just very reactionary. They start fighting it. Fighting it. Which doesn't lead, anywhere constructive. And then there's the fourth category. These are the ones who, without reacting, they look at the fear. They really look at the fear. They sit with it. They say, hold on, let me take this. Let me see what this is all about. Let me try to understand it. Then they look and they see, okay, this is what you really want me to do, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now I am going to actually resist you. I will not allow you. You are not permitted to do that to me. To take away this, to do that, to take away the calmness or tranquility of my mind. And they will fight. Tooth and nails. They will give up their lives. There's a huge difference between that person and all the other three. Now, the fourth one is very rare, especially on this planet now, because everybody's trying to mimic that person. Everybody's trying to look like that person, behave like that person, but they're not, because of the reasons I just pointed out. But this fourth one has courage and wisdom running through their veins. That is the path of someone who lives and breathes the Dhamma. Plain and simple. This path is about courage. I keep saying it for years. This path is for the courageous ones, not the ones who pretend to be courageous. When the push comes to shove, they're the first one to, as they say, drop their whatever they're wearing and just run. They're just like, yeah, sure, show me where to sign. Weaklings. This is not the path of weaklings. And a retreat really allows you, puts you in that very sensitive state of mind. Are you willing to face your fears? Your fears. No one else can do that. That's such a privileged position, you know that? Because from it you will gain understanding and wisdom. But the interesting thing is that there is a far worse fear, or not fear, but far worse enemy. And that is called mindlessness. Mindlessness. That is when we are lacking, yes, sati, full awareness of your thoughts, your words, your actions. Both internally and externally. How it's affecting you and how it is affecting the other people around you, the world around you. That is when you start to begin to understand the level of compassion that is necessary, that you're not living alone. We are surrounded by narcissists in this world. It's not anymore a situation where you have a personality disorder, in the DSM that we have in America, American Psychological Association. It's a very thick book. Diagnostical and Statistical Manual. Version 5. Actually, they're coming up with the 6th one, I think, if they haven't already. It's thicker. Very thin pages. It used to be this thick with very thick pages. So now, so many diagnoses. The reason why I'm saying this is because narcissism is what humanity is being plagued by. But it's become so subversive, it's pervasive, it's everywhere. And people have come up with ways to tweak it to make it look like it's not there in Dhamma. So they sugarcoat it a lot with actions, with words and things, appearances. That's one of the reasons why Lord Buddha says in the Vihara Sutta, he wasn't talking about students, he was talking about teachers there. He wasn't just talking about people, he was talking about teachers. For you to go ahead and live with them before you make a conclusion about them. That yes, this teacher is really an arahant, this teacher is really, solid. They understand the Dhamma, they live by the Dhamma. But it's not just for the teachers. Vihara Sutta is for everyone. Every one of us. So when you are on retreat, you get to see yourself in a different light, as well as you see others. The jig is up. Whatever you've been hiding, you're really going to have to struggle to hide it, because somebody's going to see something. And good luck hiding that. That's why it's like exposure. Going on retreat, you're exposing both yourself to yourself and to the world around you. That's another cause of fear for the person. So you see the multi-nuances of this experience that you've had. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and have a meeting with my mind. Go through all the nooks and crannies and crevasses of my mind. All the corridors and hallways of my mind. It's not just that. There's so much more that's going on, as you can see from what I'm trying to describe to you. The context around it. Thinking about something doesn't make it your reality, folks. Thinking about something does not make it your reality. You could keep saying it to yourself, but it's not going to make it real. If there isn't an investment, deep level of investment from you, emotionally, cognitively, physically. So I say that because over the 3 decades or so, I've seen a lot. I have seen it in myself. You don't have to go too far to see this. So reading on the Dhamma, listening to the Dhamma, but without applying it in your life, doesn't and will not bring it to life in you. Forget it. So all the knowledge that you keep adding is really not going to get you anywhere unless you apply it. Just a moment of sati, just a moment of really understanding. Leave the world outside. Don't bring in other people. Don't continue fighting with this person and that person. And she said that, and my teacher said this, so none of that. Take a little bit of the Dhamma and see if you can apply it in those hot moments when you're so easily agitated. The Dhamma has to prove itself to you at that moment. Its worth. It has to prove its worth to you at that time. But it can only do that if you are mindful of it fully, courageously. I hope I'm not talking in like, it sounds like I'm talking in like, mystical ways, because I'm trying not to. This is very much a fact. This is, there's nothing mystical about this. This is just real facts. So, whatever Dhamma you have been exposed to these, days, a week or so, whatever Dhamma you've been listening to, exposed to, means nothing if it doesn't ultimately change and transform you. It must, if it is really something significant for you. if it's real for you. It has to. You cannot keep it in a closet, in a cabinet. You cannot wear it like a badge. You cannot hang it on a wall like a diploma. You cannot show off. Say, I did the 10-day retreat at the BMV. Yes, thank you very much. Many people do that. Oh yes, I've done this many retreats. Who cares? Show me in your behavior what this retreat has done. I don't care. Show me how this has transformed you. Are you the same lousy person to yourself and everyone else? Or has this kind of changed something in you in a dramatic way? That's when we can say, ah, it was a retreat, wasn't it? So no need to fool yourself. We're grown-ups. We need to be courageous and say it like it is. So you must be fearless, not a coward. There's a lot of that in the world today. Wearing the outfit of a courageous hero. Heroes don't need outfits. They are heroes. They are courageous. They don't need to show off. So you must be willing to fight. You must be willing to fight your ignorance. There's hand-to-hand combat going on. If you acquiesce, if you say, yes, 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 I will go back to my go-to, I will go back to the way that I've always done this whenever I've faced this issue, then you haven't learned anything. You're just copying out, you're just running away. As they say, with your tail between your legs, running away. No, you have to fight ignorance. There's an old saying that my grandmother used to say, it's you have to show the enemy your teeth. That means they need to be scared of you. Like a dog or a wolf. They show their teeth, their fangs. You need to show your enemies your fangs. And your enemy is none other than your own ignorance. Nobody else's. So don't worry about someone else's ignorance. You're always going to have somebody else ignorant. That's fine, that's a fact. But your job is not to help them or to remove their delusion. That is your delusion. Somebody else's ignorance, somebody else's kileshas will never take you to hell. Yours will. Nobody else's mistakes, nobody else's kileshas, defilements, asavas will take you to misery, to hell, to the hell realms. Yours will. So whose are you going to work on? But the world, especially in meditation circles, everybody's working so hard to improve someone else, to fix someone else. Oh, he's like this. Ah, she's like this. Ah, how come they don't do this? How come they're not that considerate? Oh, the millions and millions and millions of stories. He's wrong, she's wrong. Okay, who cares? Are you wrong? Well, we can't talk about that because I'm too busy concerning myself with other people's mistakes. And there goes another lifetime. Wasted. So I say this because tomorrow you will go back to your normal lives. So my encouragement is not to turn it normal, not to keep it normal, to shake some things up in your life. Don't be satisfied with the way you've been living your life. There's some screwed up things you've been doing in your life, and only you will have the capacity to fix it. Otherwise, you won't. Sati will help you. Sati is those flashlights I was talking about, the headlights in the car. If you don't turn it on, you don't turn it on. But then, later on, don't complain that you're in misery. At least to yourself. So I would like you to think about the second. I mentioned the second enemy, the worst, which is the mindlessness, lacking in mindfulness. Lord Buddha says, anybody who lacks in mindfulness will never attain arahantship. It doesn't matter however many retreats you do, however many dhanas you do, how many monasteries you support, monks, nuns you support, food you provide, pilgrimages you do, I don't know, how many prostrations you do, means nothing. Nothing, as they say in America, nada. Zilch. Means nothing. Unless you have mindfulness. Yours. Sati. It's so simple. It's like, 4-letter word, sati. But how many times do we actually keep it? How many times do we actually bring it in? And it doesn't have to be so extravagant, so like bombastic, yes, I'm practicing mindfulness. No, they monetize that too, thanks to Kabat-Zinn and that capitalistic endeavor. Bastardized the whole thing. No, it's simple. It affects, it beautifies your life and the world around you because it involves sila. It gives you dignity back. It gives beauty back to this planet, to your family. You start seeing them with more loving eyes. They see you the same way. The sanctity of the family is brought back. The sanctity of the individual is brought back. Everywhere you look, you see beauty. Today, everything you touch, you see, you hear, you smell, you taste, is all polluted. We have to do investigative work when we buy something from the store. We have to really look. If you're conscientious, you need to look at the nutritional facts. In fact, 10 years ago, it was easier than now. You have to look and see. There's so many things that they have added, which is almost like a wild goose chase. It's so hard to understand. You need to do some research as to what is this multi-syllable word that I am consuming in this very simple thing that is not supposed to have this. It says mango juice, for example. What is this other things that are there, in there? I'm expecting mango and its juice. Maybe some water in there. Oh, they've added so many things, chemicals, and I'm not even talking about the air, the soil, which is so depleted. So everything we touch is toxic nowadays. Everything you see is corrupted, is polluted. You have to really exercise skillfulness in choosing what you're looking at. You cannot be nonchalant about it. You have to responsibly look at, okay, what am I looking at? Because they're invading your eyesight, your visual cortex, they're attacking it, constantly pushing some advertisement. Every time you lift up your phone, you think you're looking at the screen. Oh no, the cameras are looking at your pupils. This is not conspiracy. And they keep adding these different cameras you see behind the phone. Well, why do I need so many 3, 4, 5 different cameras in the back? What is that? What are they doing? Oh, each one of them has its own purpose. Thank you very much. Don't worry. They're watching everything. They're watching your body temperature. They're looking at what it is that you're mostly being captivated by, looking at the thing that they are projecting on the screen. And they know exactly what it is that you're looking at. You are being controlled. You're not in control. Unless you have sati. So today, if humanity really wants to help itself, it's not climate change, it's sati. Climate change is the other new flavor of the month. Okay? A few years ago it was COVID. Now it's climate change. That's the new thing. Well, it's going to change. Believe me, it's going to be something else. I don't know what. Soil. Well, yeah, soil and this and that, but there's other things. Don't be surprised. That's what I'm trying to say. When you look at life, you need to look at patterns, and that was what Lord Buddha was excellent in doing. If you practice the Dhamma, you need to look at patterns and not be like that cat that you move something in front of it and it gets focused, tunneled vision. That's what humanity has become. And it's sad because I see Dhamma students becoming like that. Fixated with tunnel vision. They are not seeing the context. They're not looking at the patterns. There used to be time where people used to study history, world history to be exact. It's not being taught. Do you know that? Well, how am I going to know about the world's history or what's happening now without accessing what has happened before? No one's talking about this. Everybody's fixated on what is being presented to you. So today we are living in very, very dangerous times. Sati is essential. It is actually as valuable as the oxygen that your lungs need, the nitrogen that your body needs, the carbon that your body needs, the hydrogen that your body needs. It's that essential. It's no longer a luxury. So I need you to think about it from that purview. Because today, we come back to what has been taught to you within the technique of metta, as I've been teaching you and guiding you and helping you understand and explore from your own experiences. Meaning, the four foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana. The metta that we have been practicing, if you've been noticing how you've been asked, encouraged to tweak it by the relaxed step, by first recognizing relaxed step, checking in, seeing what's happening in you, smiling and feeling the effect of that, and then consciously rolling back into the metta practice, to your object of meditation. What you've been doing is the satipatthana. Unlike what traditionally has been taught and still is in Buddhist circles, which sadly enough was the same method of metta practice that was going on at the time of Lord Buddha. The Brahma Viharas were actually practiced at the time of the Buddha, you know. Contemporaries of Lord Buddha were practicing this. In the Halidavasana Sutta, yes. The bhikkhus are meeting with yogis and recluses of other sects. You know, they used to be very respectful to each other, not like today. You saw what happened at the park the other day. Interesting. If they look not like us, so they are cause for fear. We need to get them out. That's fear. Ignorance. In those days, human beings were much better than today, more civilized than today. So they were having cordial discussions. So the subject of Brahma Viharas comes up. So the bhikkhus describe what they do, and these bhikkhus apparently were practitioners of the Brahma Viharas, and the other recluses from other traditions were like, okay, yeah, and that's what we do as well. So what's so different between your practice and ours? So the bhikkhus don't say, yes, we agree, nor do they reject such a statement, such a claim. So they respectfully get up and leave and go to Lord Buddha, as a good bhikkhu is supposed to do. When you have Lord Buddha around, that is. Otherwise, you use the Dhamma and the Vinaya, because we don't have Lord Buddha anymore, and your own experiences to match them. So the bhikkhus went and explained, what is this, Bhante? And he says, okay, next time you face such a question, you need to explain it in this manner. There's a difference in your practice of the Brahma Viharas and ours. And how is that? The Satta Bojjhangas. They completely change everything. Because they have within it sati, they have within it wisdom, Dhammavichaya, investigation, they have within it virya, they have within them piti, yes, tranquility of mind, samadhi, and upekkha, which thanks to sati becomes panya. The other day you were asking me about what's the difference between equanimity and indifference. Very simple, easy if you want to answer someone on the street, if they ask you such a question, which would be an interesting dialogue on the street. Sati. If it's genuine sati, it can never be indifference. The indifferent person is rushing out of this moment. They don't want to be experiencing the fullness of this moment. They despise being in the present. That's an indifferent person. They're bored to bits. An equanimous mind, however, is very open, very curious, present with panya, through and through. And that's one of the reasons why anyone has experienced the Brahma, they're called Brahma Viharas because a person who's practicing them, yes, you will go through the jhanas. If you really perfected them, after your death, you will be reborn in a Brahma realm, equivalent to that level of jhana. There's different levels, right? The equanimous would be the higher forms of Brahma realms. Now, in various suttas, Lord Buddha says, especially in the Anguttara Nikaya, Lord Buddha says, there's a difference between a person who is reborn in the Brahma realms thanks to the metta practice, and another person who's been reborn in the Brahma realms with the metta practice as well. One person who has just purely done metta or mudita or karuna or upekkha, when the time comes up, runs out, and they expire, they will fall from that realm to a lower realm, sometimes hell, usually. But the person who has also done metta, but with the Satta Bojjhangas, or in other words, Satipatthana, will not. They will live in that realm until they become arahants. Either that, or they will be reborn into another Deva realm to attain arahantship. Is there a difference there? I think so. Earlier today, during one of the interviews, I was pointing out to a student how when we're practicing the Bojjhangas, it is not separate from the metta practice. Depending on how we have trained ourselves, sometimes we're very compartmentalized in our thinking. Yesterday I was talking about linear thinking. Each one of us is different. We have different constitutions, different ways of functioning. That's okay. However, when you come to a teacher, the teacher is supposed to instruct you on the right way versus the wrong way that you've been doing it. So, you don't drop the metta practice and say, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and switch over and do the Bojjhangas. Which normally a person who doesn't know how to work it would do. And that's Okay, up until you have to bring it up to the teacher to fix it as soon as possible. Because when you're doing, let's say, the 6 hours, or the 4 hours, or the 3 hours, I don't care about the number. As long as you include recognize, you include relax, we include smile, and you include the return back to the object. So that's pretty much 4. I don't care numbers. As long as you go through those flows. As you're doing that, especially when you get sloth and torpor, what's the instruction? Bring in piti. What is piti again? Is it part of the bojjhangas? It gives you life, energy. All of a sudden you thought you were like about to lay down and sleep. Suddenly you're able to go ahead for 1 hour, 2 hours. Once in Indonesia, I said, I'm not going to sleep, I'm not going to sleep. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting. Everybody went to sleep, and now all of a sudden, the energy came. I thought I was going to be up for an hour and a half. Oh no! I was up until the next morning, and I loved my sleep. And my back was killing me. It was killing me. I had just come from a long flight, 8.5 hours. Long drive to the retreat place, which was about 3.5 hours away, up and down bumpy roads in Indonesia. So my body felt like it needed, but that piti changed everything. Now it's not just piti, of course, tranquility. You need to bring in that element, that flavor of tranquility when you're becoming too tight. When you get too hot, you get agitated. What needs to calm it down? I'm not going to bring in more piti or virya when my mind is agitated. You know, you don't do that. Not even Dhamma Vichaya, because it's too hot. They're energizing factors. I need to do the opposite. Pasadi. It's okay. Calm down. I'm not going to add more energy. That would be stupid of me. When am I doing this again? As I'm coming back to the metta. Do you see the difference? Instead of, may you be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy. Yes, yes, yes. I'm seeing nimittas all around. Yes, it's glowing. I feel so fuzzy. No, that's not Dhamma. That's not Dhamma. I know we like to feel nice and all this. No, that's not why you're here. You're here to understand the Dhamma, to penetrate. That fuzziness is going to, at the most, take you some Brahma realm. And then you're going to fall on your behind. Sooner or later. What has that got you? A few billion years in a heavenly realm? Is that it? Is that it? That's cheap. My life is worth a lot more than that. My finding of the Dhamma in this whole mess of a world is worth a lot more than that. That's just me talking. I don't know about you. This is where we need to really own up and not just be too nonchalant or relaxed about this whole thing. So when we're doing the sutta, because I'm giving you all these things because it's the last day of me giving the suttas, the Dhamma discussions on this retreat, but also because this is a very significant sutta, because it talks about, well, first of all, it's about Venerable Anuruddha, who was unique among the Arya Savakas. He's very unique in that I find him very relatable. Even though he had the ability, the Dibba Chakku, to see the cosmos, to hear the devas. The devas or the Brahma gods could not hide their discussions from him. If he wanted to listen, he would hear them. He would watch Lord Buddha's mind. And if you're of that level, you could do that. In fact, when Lord Buddha was dying, it was Venerable Anuruddha who knew which stages of the jhanas Lord Buddha was going through before he died, because Venerable Ananda was going, Yes, he died. Now he died. Yes, now. And Anuruddha would say, shh, he's still there. He's in the first jhana. He's in the second jhana. Now he's in the fourth jhana. And then Venerable Ananda would go, yes, he's gone now. Anuruddha would say, no, Ananda, Lord Buddha is still. Now he's in the fifth jhana or the eighth jhana. So he passed away between the fourth and the fifth jhanas, by the way, in case you're wondering. Lord Buddha, he died between those two, transitioning. Because he went through all of them, came back, and then went back up. Went all the way from the first, all the way to cessation, came back to the first, and then went back up to the fourth, and then as he was transitioning to the fifth jhana, and how do we know this? Thanks to Venerable Anuruddha. So, you have entire groups of suttas dedicated to Venerable Anuruddha in the Samyutta Nikaya. And plus you have many, many suttas under his name in different Nikayas. But the interesting thing is that in the sections, in the connected discourse, Samyutta Nikaya, when you look up Venerable Anuruddha's discourses, every single one of them is talking about the Satipatthana, which is wonderful. They come and say, Bhante, lay people, Bhante, what was the technique you used? How did you become an arahant? He would say, Satipatthana. You see monks come and ask him, friend, how did you become an arahant? You say, Satipatthana. Other arahants would come and ask him, curious, how did you have the Dibba Chakra? He would say, Satipatthana. How did you become an arahant? Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness. So that should be enough of a clue for you that it's so powerful. Don't take it lightly. Any one of them, Kayanupassana, is enough. So, in this sutta, we have a very graphic and descriptive way of explaining how the practice entails the vipassana, what that means. And it does this specifically in a very unique way. This is a very unique sutta because the reason why I said relatable is because he talks about what is being experienced, and the bhikkhu, the meditator, knows what is happening internally and externally. Not only that, but how the four satipatthanas, which are the body, feelings, mental states, and phenomena and their relationships, hindrances, khandas, all these things, they have a point of arising and vanishing. This sutta talks about that in detail. So it's a great manual. That's what I'm trying to say with so many words. If you want to attain Nibbana and all the other suttas didn't work, try this. So, let's dig in. Oh, by the way, the number I haven't said, it's Samyutta Nikaya 52.1. Samyutta Nikaya, which is the connected discourses, and it's from the Maha Samyutta on the great section, from the Rahogata Vagga. This is, in Pali, it's called the Paṭhamarahogata Sutta, in seclusion, part 1. Paṭhama means part 1. Dutiya means part 2, Tatiya, etc. So, I have heard this myself. At one time, the Venerable Anuruddha was staying in Savatthi, Jeta's Grove. Savathi's Jeta's Grove at Anathapindika's monastery. Then, while the Venerable Anuruddha was in seclusion, he began reflecting on the following thought. All those who have neglected the practice of the four foundations of mindfulness have neglected the noble path that leads to the complete ending of all suffering. All those who have undertaken the practice of the four foundations of mindfulness have undertaken the noble path that leads to the complete ending of all suffering. Meanwhile, the Venerable Maha Candana, knowing in his mind what the Venerable Anuruddha was thinking, they used to scan each other's minds. Just like a strong and agile person would quickly extend or flex his arm, so too he instantaneously appeared in front of the Venerable Anuruddha and said these words to him. And how, friend Anuruddha, without missing a beat, as if he was there, so he's responding, he's like continuing the sentence. And how, friend Anuruddha, do you define the undertaking of the four foundations of mindfulness to be practiced by the bhikkhu? Friend, this is Venerable Anuruddha. It is when a bhikkhu meditates while observing whatever experiences that arise or take place within the body, oneself. He meditates while observing the disappearance of whatever experiences that were taking place within the body. Remember, now it's in the past tense, that were taking place. He meditates while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever experiences that occur within the body. Appearance and disappearance, arising and vanishing of the experience. So you're fully alert. It's like sitting there watching someone walk in through the door and then they leave. And someone else comes and asks you, did someone come in and leave? And you say, yeah, that's it. Now can you extend that into your life, into the tiniest little segments of your day, where every moment that you live, you're like that. You're aware. Before, during, and after, you think, you speak, you do things. You witness things, both internally and externally. That means you're practicing a legitimate satipatthana. The bhikkhu thus meditates while observing the body with keen interest, careful attention, and mindfully, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience. So it could be a bad experience, painful experience. So you're not saying, may it go away, may it go away. You're not closing your ears saying, this is not happening to me, this is not happening to me. No, you're watching it, you're observing it. Nor desiring to change the truth of whatever is taking place. While you were sitting meditating during this retreat, many thoughts came up, feelings came up that you didn't plan. They show up. They come up and you say, Bhante, why is this coming up? Where is this thing coming from? It's happening. Call them sankharas, call them asavas, they're happening. Your job is not to follow, your job is not to fight them. That's just the nature of things. It's going to happen. You didn't ask for it, did you? It showed up. Okay, let it go. The person walked through the door, let him go out. Why take him in and say, okay, now you have to explain, why did you come? No, you don't. No, you don't. The bhikkhu meditates while observing whatever experiences that arise or take place external to the body. Now you're seeing also things that are happening outside. Not just the way your body feels. Let's say sound is outside your body, taking place. A sight is outside your body. That's one way of understanding it. It also could be something that is happening on the surface of the body. You can also look at it like that. Versus internally, something that you feel inside the body. That's another way of understanding it. So don't be rigid. That's what I'm trying to say. He meditates while observing, did I say that? Okay. He meditates while observing the disappearance of whatever experiences that were taking place external to the body. The person coming in and leaving, literally. The sound happening, and then the rain wasn't coming down like this earlier, and now it is. Well, it's not going to stay like that forever. It will disappear, right? So, the bhikkhu meditates thus while observing the body with keen interest, careful attention, and mindfully, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience, nor desiring to change the truth of whatever is taking place. If you notice, that formula is going to repeat itself. And that's a formula that is used almost every single time whenever the Satipatthana is being presented or explained or elaborated. Further, the bhikkhu meditates while observing whatever experiences that arise or take place both within and external or outside the body. You're doing it at the same time. So obviously this needs a little bit more practice. But you have to start from where you are, meaning your own body. How does your body feel? You're sitting in a certain way. If you sit long enough, you're going to feel certain sensations which are not pleasant. Okay, that's inside your body. But it's not just the inside that's taking place. You're having an impact on the surrounding, as well as the surrounding environment is having an impact on you. So now you're becoming aware of both. Let's say if the aircon, AC is not working, and it's extremely hot and humid, and you're feeling pain in your legs, what's happening? Or the air conditioning is working, but it's blasting away and it's coming down on your head, and your body's hurting. So a person who's practicing Satipatthana is becoming aware of these things, so it's unfolding. It depends on your capacity to push the envelope. That's what I've been trying to have you do. Push gently. When you were sitting 30 minutes, gently, gently push, 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 until it becomes 1 hour. And then, you know me, I'm going to have to push a little bit more. Push. Not all of a sudden. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes. All of a sudden you're sitting 2 hours, 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Not bad. In the same way, as your sati, capacity to have sati, develops, you become sensitive to whatever's happening both inside and outside. Individually and then both at the same time. He meditates while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever experiences that occur both within and outside the body. The bhikkhu thus meditates while observing the body with keen interest, careful attention, and mindfully, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience, nor desiring to change the truth of whatever is taking place. And if he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I be able to perceive the repulsive in what is attractive, he is able to do so. Listen to this. If I want, let me see the repulsive in what is attractive. That means you're looking at a delicious meal while you're extremely hungry. Or you feel attracted towards something, a person, and you're very interested. You look at them, and no one can look at that attractive person and say that person is ugly or repulsive. But because your mind is settled, equanimous, such a person, because of sati's presence, is going to go ahead and say, the contents of this person's intestines are quite disgusting. I can practically smell his feces from here. No one's thinking about that when they're looking at that person, you know, because they're very, very attractive. The sati is so strong that the mind, you're not struggling, you're not forcing it, you're not faking it, you're not visualizing it. You're just able to perceive it like that. This comes with practice. Just like when you're doing recognize, relax, smile, come back to your object, in the same way, you see someone, where do the eyes go? The most attractive part of the body. Okay, dig deeper. Don't stop at the flesh. Go deeper. About an inch deeper. How about 2? Can you smell the blood? Can you smell the urine inside the body now? That perfect, attractive body? How about the eyeballs? See, that person is able to do that. I see some of you are like uncomfortable in your seats from just the images. If he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I be able to perceive what is unrepulsive in what is disgusting and repulsive. And he's able to do so. You look at a body, dead body. Once I was in Nepal and I was able to go inside this Hindu temple, which is apparently one of the 6 or 7 major Hindu temples in the world, and it happens to be in Nepal. There's the majority of the Nepalese are of the Hindu faith, a religion. So they didn't allow me, but then there was a Nepalese monk, Buddhist monk, he said, come with me. So he took me from the back and we went in, and all of a sudden he took me where the funeral pyres were. And they had several bodies, several cremations that were going on. Some were getting set up. No women, just men. And they look at us, we're men, so they're just, okay, fine, look. So, and then I'm looking and I'm observing and I could see body parts on the funeral pyre while the fire is going. And then it hit me, the smell and the sound, bubbling. You could hear the skin, the flesh bubbling. Now, some of you get, irked by this. I get that. But being there, it's very interesting to watch the mind looking at the 6 senses. I was observing my olfactory senses, my nose, and I'm like, oh, so you don't like this smell, don't you? Interesting. And then I'm looking, and my eyes say, no, look away, look away, look away. Don't look at the person's toes. They're black and they're burning. And what are you doing? Look away. Why? What's the difference between that and a daisy and a lotus? How about a lotus? Perfectly beautiful lotus opening up on a pond. Perfect. What's the difference between that and the toe burning, roasting? You see what's happening. If he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I be able to perceive what is repulsive in both what is attractive and repulsive. This means equanimity. Okay? He's talking about the bojjhangas. So don't think of them as a different category, because their Venerable Anuruddha in this case is not mentioning sambojjhanga or sattabojjhanga or upekka. No, don't be fooled. You're more alert than that. You've been exposed to more Dhamma than that. So I need you to expand your understanding. Look contextually. Don't look for the exact words. Don't be so linear in your thinking. Use your right brain, like I was saying yesterday. Okay. And if he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I remain equanimous, mindfully present, and clearly comprehending the experience, whether I'm observing what is attractive or repulsive. He is able to do so as he remains equanimous, mindfully present, and clearly comprehending the experience. Further, friend, the bhikkhu meditates while observing whatever feelings that arise or take place within. He meditates while observing the disappearance. Did you see? Now he's talking about feelings. Earlier, it was about the body, experiencing the body. Here, we went to the feelings. All right? So, because it's satipatthana. It was the kaya, now it's vedana. He meditates while observing the disappearance of whatever feelings that were taking place within. He meditates while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever feelings that occur within. That means you might be smiling, but don't be fooled by that smile. You might be feeling resentment inside. That's what I was saying earlier about being honest this morning. Honest and truthful with yourself, with your sittings. Don't be fooled by that fake smile that you have on your face. Encourage it to be true. Check, double check. The bhikkhu thus meditates while observing the feelings with keen interest, careful attention, and mindfully, without having any desire to avoid, nor lean into the feelings, nor desiring to change the truth of whatever is taking place. The bhikkhu meditates while observing whatever feelings arising due to outside causes. It might be somebody who comes in and yells, somebody who slams the window, somebody who drops something when you are in meditation. You know how much you love that, don't you? Especially when you finally got into that nice, beautiful space and it's like, yes, I can't wait to tell Bhante this tomorrow and during my interview. And boom, somebody, I don't know, bodily noise, gas is released, something. And all of a sudden, the house of cards falls apart. That's an outside cause for a feeling that you have experienced. He meditates while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever feelings arising due to outside causes. The bhikkhu meditates thus while observing the feelings with keen interest, careful attention, and mindfully, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the feelings. You don't identify. That's what I mean by leaning into the feeling. And that's one of the reasons why when I encourage you to not be listening to your intellect when you're listening to the Dhamma, you can only listen to one. Okay? You cannot listen to both the Dhamma and your intellect. Your thoughts, your ideas, your sifting, your filtering, your critiquing of what it is you're hearing. Yes, I agree with that. Oh, wait. No, I don't agree with that. I'm going to have to ask him a question or her this question. You missed the boat. You missed the Dhamma. You can only listen to one. You choose. And if you're at a Dhamma talk, it better be the Dhamma, not your ideas. Because if your ideas were that good, you should have become an Arahant by now. And if you haven't, guess what? Drop your ideas. They're the fetters. Plain and simple. He meditates while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever feelings that occur within, and those arising due to outside causes. The bhikkhu thus meditates while observing the feelings with keen interest. So he repeats that. I don't want to repeat that again and again. So he says, if he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I be able to perceive the repulsive in what is attractive. He is able to do so. So the same formula now repeats. When you're looking at something that is attractive, the mind is able, without jolting, without becoming agitated, to see the repulsive in that. So you're not following, you're not constructing stories with that. Let's say you have a boss who's disgusting in their manners, or a customer who's terrible. Somebody who comes and, let's say you sell products, they come and look and ask you questions, and they walk away after wasting 2 hours of your time. And they do this every month, and you know that. They're miserly, stingy people, but they waste your time. For example. So what is your reaction to that? It's repulsive. But can you see beyond that? If he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I be able to perceive what is unrepulsive in what is disgusting and repulsive, and he's able to do so. Self-explanatory. So I don't want to repeat that because it's a long sutta, so I'm trying to cover as much as I can and leave room for some questions if there are any. So, further, friend, the bhikkhu meditates while observing whatever mental states that arise or take place within. Cittanupassana. Seeing the various states of mind. Is the mind dull? Is it feeling sluggish? Do you feel contracted? Contracted usually means basically sloth, drowsy, sluggish. You're just being squeezed down into the pillow. Or is the mind distracted, restless, running around, bored. You always want the next sensation. This is what usually happens on a retreat, especially when you have like reporting to do, one-on-one interviews. So I hope you got that out of your head, that I am not interested in you coming in and tell me of these incredible experiences. I don't care about that. I just am there to see if you're doing something wrong, or to fix it, or if you're doing something right, to encourage you and maybe tweak it a little bit better so you can do it even faster and better and more efficiently. That's the point. I've been on retreats where the teachers would want to do one-on-ones, but everybody's driven directly or indirectly to come up with stories. I'm in this jhana, I'm in this jhana. So what people would do is they would sit closer and closer to the interview room. And I never liked that. And guess what? Everybody was copying each other. All of a sudden, you had a whole group of participants becoming suddenly sotapannas. Or in the beginning periods, jhanas. People were going to the first, second, third, and all the way up to the 8 jhanas. Wait a minute, that's not possible. I'm looking at their behaviors like, because I was also assisting that teacher. Something is wrong here. Are you sure? Maybe we should close the door. Maybe we should have the chairs be about 10 meters away. And especially to shut their mouths. Like not to talk about your experiences. That's one thing that I always want my students. You are not supposed to be talking about your experiences to each other, with each other. This is where I am, this is what I felt, what about you? That is toxic. If you want to lose your path in the Dhamma, then keep doing that. Because the teacher will not be able to help you. Because you've already lost your path. And you're using landmarks and things, signs and things that are not even true. You might have even convinced yourself that those were it. That's what happens. And the teacher is really going to have to bend over backwards to try to figure out what's happening here. But the teacher cannot go and live with every single one of you for about a week or so to see where you really are at. So now what happened then? You're in the jungle, you're lost. Who's responsible? You are. So, never talk about your experiences. Talk about the Dhamma. That's beautiful. And you talk about the Dhamma no more than once a week. I don't care how close you are. If you're sisters, brothers, I don't care. You don't talk about the Dhamma practice, including the Dhamma. Leave it to gestate. Allow it to grow. It's a seed. Because that conversation, once a week, we get from the Arya Savakas. Okay? We learned that from Venerable Anuruddha, Kimbila, Nandiya. They would talk once every 5 days. Remember from the other suttas that we covered? Remember? Chula Gosinga Sutta? That means also not be part to so many different meditation groups. Because one meditation is going to be teaching you one thing unless you're keeping your practice the same throughout. Don't keep switching. It's going to mess you up. If you know better, don't do it. If you really want to prolong your time in samsara, go ahead. If you really want to prolong your time in samsara and be confused, despite the fact that you are talking Dhamma, then go ahead and be part of several different Dhamma groups, which is something that's been happening a lot in the world, not just in Asia. People are part of 2, 3 different Dhamma groups around the world. Earlier I was making comments about the 12-step programs, the AA type addiction groups. That's what Dhamma groups have turned into. Oh, I'll go there, I'll go there. What is that really doing? It is taking you away from your own personal practice, from your silence. Keep your mouth shut. Keep your practice to yourself. Let the seed send down its roots. Don't open up the soil and say, oh, is it growing now? Is it like that little child who went and planted some seeds with his grandfather? And then the grandfather shows him the carrots that had grown on the other side of the field. They had planted these, and there was some over there. And he says, my son, my grandson, look, that's how they're going to grow. He says, oh yeah, okay. When? Well, when it's time. The next morning, the grandson goes and starts digging and looking. Where are the carrots? There's got to be carrots. There's got to be the plant, whatever it is. How come it's not growing? So your eagerness to gain something out of the Dhamma, that is the kiss of death to your progress, despite what you tell yourself. Don't fool yourself. Be honest. That's what I keep telling you. Seclusion is necessary. You need to learn that if you want to go deep. You need to learn to be alone. Not to go and live in a kuti. That's not what I'm saying. You need to be alone with your experiences. And yes, you can talk to your teacher. You can send messages. You can send me an email every 2 weeks or so. That gives me enough time to see and to also gauge where you're at. The bhikkhu meditates while observing whatever mental states arising due to outside causes. So first it was, actually I didn't cover that. He meditates while observing the disappearance of whatever mental states that were taking place within. So when you were restless and all of a sudden you did the relaxed step, smiled, came back to metta, and you allowed, and you saw that the mind was restless, and then you thought about passaddhi, and now all of a sudden the mind just drops into this state of tranquility. Now, a person who's practicing vipassana proper, somebody who's practicing satipatthana proper, will look and see, interesting, the mind was restless. Oh, that's sweet. Oh, I can feel the bojjhangas, they just melted into the practice. It's so organic. You're seeing it, you're not attached to it. You're seeing it, you're observing it. It's just like seeing someone enter the room and exit the room. You saw the restlessness, you didn't become a slave to the restlessness, you didn't make it your own. That's, I'm restless, I'm a restless person. No, you didn't do that. Restlessness was observed going out, vanishing. And now tranquility is being observed. And tranquility will also go, perhaps. You're not attached to it. So, the bhikkhu meditates while observing whatever mental states arising due to outside causes. He meditates while observing the disappearance of whatever mental states arising due to outside causes. So, the jolting, the noise. Somebody, if you hear a woman scream or cat scream or somebody, a man or an ambulance or a car shrieks, hits their brake and they slam into, it's going to create a certain mental state in us, unless we're inert. Unless we're dead, it's going to do something. So the mind of a practitioner of satipatthana will be watching all that. Oh, okay, there's the sound. They might even be naturally jolted, but they're still there. They're still watching. Who's coming in? In this case, the door is a representation of the 6 sense doors. In this example, it's the ears. Right? The bhikkhu meditates thus while observing the mental states with keen interest. That's key. Keen interest. You need to be excited. You need to be like... There is not a moment of your dull life, you consider your life dull, let's say, or parts of your day, boring. But there's not a moment that actually is boring. None. Leaving the kitchen, going to your living room. You think that's boring? Oh no. For the person who's observing the 6 sense doors, there's so much to observe. And I'm not even talking about the inside, the inner body, the body. The way your feet move. When I was explaining to you how to walk. Be able to touch the ground in a certain way. That takes a special kind of alertness, you know. You know that. That's what we call sati sampajanya, full awareness, full. That's applying yoniso manasikara, in case you're wondering. Even from my living room to the bedroom or to the bathroom or outside, throwing away the garbage, all that, yes. So there's not a dull moment to waste. Also, the bhikkhu meditates while observing the mental states that arise or take place within and those arising due to the outside causes. So that's explanatory because we've seen them before in the others. So if he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I be able to perceive the repulsive in what is attractive. He's able to do so. The same formula repeats for the cittanupassana here. So seeing the non-repulsive in what is disgusting and repulsive, and to perceive what is repulsive both in the attractive and the repulsive. So you're training yourself. So in your real life, when you're seeing something, intentionally look at something that you don't like to look at. So I would train my students sometimes to look up images online, and especially if I see them able to, and I check on them, and I see I'm checking in, and slowly I will guide them towards watching a dissection of a human body. But it doesn't start like that. It could be a picture, a 2D picture, maybe black and white first, of a cremation site without a human body in it. There's no smell, nothing. Because you don't want to traumatize the person, even though they've had sati, this and that, because you need to ease the person in. Okay, because the students I'm talking about are lay students. So despite the level of experience and depth in meditation, so slowly, when I see them ready, I will encourage them to, maybe I might even send them some videos of an autopsy or a dissection or bleeding. I know grown men and women who would faint if they saw blood, even their own, growing up. So, such a person is really going to have a hard time. So the idea is to get the mind, not to shock you, but to get your mind to still learn to be equanimous despite whatever it is that it's seeing. Whether it is a beautiful fjord in Norway that you're looking at, a sunrise, coming up. You're standing at the edge of a cliff and it's like, whoa, this is so beautiful. Or seeing worms coming out of a gut of a dead person. Or a vulture in Tibet chewing away at the pieces of a femur, the leg bone, the long leg bone that has been cut into pieces. And they're fighting over it. So how is the mind at that moment? That's what we're talking about. It takes effort, it takes practice, but you don't start from there. That's what I'm trying to say. Easy does it. So sati has to start from you, from your normal surroundings. So further, friend, the bhikkhu meditates while observing the relationships of whatever phenomena that arise or take place within. Here, this is my translation, of course, that I'm going over. What I'm talking about is the Dhammanupassana. One of the mistranslated terms are the Dhammas. This is not Dhamma, capital D in English, the teachings or the doctrine or nature or truth. These are the different or various phenomena. It could be the Four Noble Truths, it could be anicca, it could be the five khandhas, it could be the hindrances. All these are mental objects. But it's not just the objects that you're observant of, but also their relationships. Hindrance is not as powerful on its own. Hindrance becomes a real hindrance when it has a relationship with you. It's bugging you, it's making you doubt your practice, the teacher, the teaching. For example, it's a hindrance. So you need to check the relationship, not just labeling. That's why I never liked labeling. It's one of the useless things you could do. No self-respecting meditator in today's world is actually going to be teaching labeling. That's outdated, because it distances the person, the experiencer, from the experience itself. You're labeling it, you're giving it a badge, you're not seeing the truth of it. You're creating another quasi-truth of it. So you can never truly experience vipassana then. There's no satipatthana. You're labeling it. But there's entire schools dedicated to that, unfortunately. He meditates while observing the disappearance of relationships of whatever phenomena that were taking place within. So I gave the example of hindrances. You see the hindrances come, you see them go. Just like the person coming in and out of the room. You're just observing. You're aware. You're not lying to yourself. You're not making up stuff. You're not hiding anything from yourself either. The bhikkhu meditates while observing the relationships of whatever phenomena arising due to outside causes this time. You were sitting comfortably and all of a sudden somebody does something, and now there is the hindrance of restlessness. Or somebody in front of your eyes breaks a precept, especially on a retreat, let's say. We're not supposed to eat, and then you see the person looking around and they get an apple and they bite into it. Or they have some food left in the fridge, they pull it out and they start eating the chow mein or whatever food they had, the sandwich, whatever it was. Now, guess what has become your meditation object? Oh, disgusting. Vyapada. How about if it was you who did it? Oh. Remorse come to mind? Guilty? I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. Guess what? The mind is now agitated, which is why we keep sila. Sila is because we need to have the mind calm down. To protect your mind. That's the first reason why we practice sila. You don't put yourself in harm's way. So, this is the observing the outside conditions and what they're doing for the Dhamma anupassana. So nothing is slipping by you. But this is a level that not everyone has to reach even. Okay? Many times I've had the question of, well, do I need to practice all the satipatthanas to attain, let's say? Honest answer is no. You can attain just from the kaya anupassana if you're practicing truthfully, fully. You're not letting any of your inhale or exhale go to waste. For example, Lord Buddha gave the instructions not just for just one category of people. There are different levels of people, of understanding. So for a mind that is able to penetrate deeper and function on these different levels, such a person, and they practice and they have the time also to do it, they can evolve their practice to practice all the levels of satipatthana. That's fine. But please don't make the mistake to think that, oh, I can only attain if I've reached all the way up to the Dhammanupassana level. Absolute nonsense. That's wrong view. Whoever teaches that, I don't know of anyone who teaches that, by the way. But if you ever heard it, that's absolute complete miccāditthi. Has nothing to do with the Dhamma. Kaya-anupassana is enough. Vedana-anupassana on its own is enough. Pick one. Whatever works for you. And it's not like you're going to be stuck with one. Sometimes they change. I would have fun with one versus the other. Sometimes I'm in the mood for just the body. Sometimes the feelings are so loud because it's an intense environment, the outside circumstance, the external world that they're talking about. It's too massive, it's too powerful. So you cannot avoid being surrounded by feelings, heavy feelings, usually one of the two extremes, either really good or really bad. Especially when you're sick or when you get sunburned. This week, I had the unique circumstance, shall we say, of experiencing severe hives. And it started on Sunday night, the orientation night. And it just stopped yesterday. Extreme itching, all from my head down to my toes. Terrible itching. I was sleeping for about maybe an hour and a half, 2, if I was lucky about 3 hours. Painful, itching, as if I was telling someone who was, getting me like some antihistamines and things. It felt like countless ants crawling under your skin, eating at you and burning you at the same time. And suddenly it cools and then it changes. The midsection starts and then one leg. What is this going to do to the brain, to the mind? There's a lot of feelings going on, isn't there? Sensations. So not to miss any of these opportunities. And you're also watching the mind. The mind says, well, it's not fair. Now is the time. Like, I have to be there for my students. Now it's the time for this? Now? On 10-day retreats? You couldn't wait for, 1 week later? Now? But now is the time. That was the truth. I didn't ask for it. It happened. So all these things are happening to the mind, and you're observing it. You're watching it. So don't be surprised, but you need to practice. Pick one. Kaya. Let's go with Kaya. Watch the breath. Watch the body posture. You don't have to follow the breath. I know it can be hard to stay with it, especially when you're doing metta. You can walk with metta. That's what I've been trying to teach you. Walk with metta, touch with metta, smile with metta. Every time you toss and turn in bed, can you turn with metta? And it might switch on you. It might suddenly turn into upekkha or mudita. You hear a baby cry somewhere at night, early morning. Suddenly your heart starts overflooding with mudita for the child and also the parents, because now they have to get up. What if they have to go tomorrow to work? Chances are they are. It feels, you don't feel pity, but you're feeling what the child, the baby, the infant. So all this is happening while you had a moment of wakefulness. You don't dwell on it. You don't lean into the experience. You say, see that? I have mudita. I should report this. No, you're just there. You're observing all these things happen. That's all. The bhikkhu thus meditates while observing the relationships of phenomena with keen interest, careful attention, and mindfully, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the relationships of phenomena. Also, the bhikkhu meditates while observing the relationships of whatever phenomena that arise or take place within and those arising due to the outside causes. And it's the same formula, but in this case, it's the Dhammanupassana. And if he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I be able to perceive the repulsive in what is attractive, he is able to do so. Again, in this case, every one of these repetition in each of these sections is pertinent, connected to that satipatthana. Okay, so in this case, it is someone who is practicing the Dhammanupassana, who is looking at the repulsive and seeing it as attractive, while observing everything that's going on in the mind and the body. That's Dhammanupassana. It's a heavier, more advanced level of practicing vipassana. Because you have the capacity now, you have evolved your practice to the point where it's mature enough, cultivated enough, developed enough for you to still maintain stillness. You're also watching your bojjhangas. All these things. It's not like you having to work on several different computers at the same time. It's not like that. It's just happening. It's like driving a car. I used to watch, when I was a teenager, I used to watch my father drive a car, and there's the rear view mirror, there's the side mirror, there's the passenger side mirror, and you have the front of the car, but then he had to turn behind him, towards the left, and then towards the right. Which one are you going to pay attention? And then you have to drive? I said, I'm not doing this. This is too much for my brain. My head hurts just watching you. And then you start seeing this. No. That's why people say, you want me to watch my body, my walking, every step? Are you serious? Maybe I could do for 5 steps. Kayanapasana. It's too much for them, initially. When they're first starting to practice. And then they start practicing, just like when you say, oh, Bhante, I can only sit for 20 minutes. When I first started sitting, 5 minutes was unbelievably hard for me. My brother used to sit for 20. He used to do TM at the time, Transcendental Meditation, back in the Middle East. So I would look at him, it's like, what is that? What is that? 5 minutes for me was incredibly long. And I said, if he could do it, I could do it. And then I went my separate ways, and I was just watching different things, hearing sounds, just paying attention. And all of a sudden it became 30, 35 minutes. And you're the perfect example of this. Many of you have told me, Bhante, I can just sit for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Some of you were sitting more than 3 hours, 4. How is that possible? Pushing the boundaries with compassion. Not all of a sudden. Tolerate yourself. If he so wishes, while I meditate thus, may I remain equanimous, mindfully present, and clearly comprehending the experience. Whether I'm observing what is attractive or repulsive, he is able to do so, as he remains equanimous, mindfully present, and clearly comprehending the experience. It is in this manner, friend, that I define the undertaking of the 4 foundations of mindfulness to be practiced by a bhikkhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sooner or later, we must come to the realization that suffering is known by the person who is finally standing up to feel all its nuances without hiding. Suffering must be experienced, not run away from. We have been programmed, because of evolution, to run away from anything that is uncomfortable. Fear, I was mentioning in the beginning. What is fear? When you dig deep, 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 deep down, it's causing us suffering. That's why the person is fighting it. That's why the person is acquiescing to it, handing over everything, and then their dignity as well. Just leave me alone. That's why the person is fighting it. That's why all these things are happening, suffering. But it has to be fully experienced, understood, appreciated. That is when we start to really get on the path. Everybody knows suffering, but not everybody knows suffering. You need to understand, appreciate all its nuances. And that's when it starts. You start to see the first noble truth. And you must be aware of it. You must be mindful of it. You cannot know it intellectually. Forget about it. I see a lot of people, the majority of people that I've come across in Dhamma circles have a lot of information in their heads, but very little experience of suffering. Experience that is understood and appreciated, that is. Appreciation of suffering must be there. Because that's the thing that's going to allow us to learn, not run away from. Well, he insulted me. But, okay, how did that feel like? Terrible. Okay, let's leave him out of this. Terrible. Could you give it another name? Yeah, it hurt. Okay, how do you visualize? How do you describe it? Did you suffer? Yes. Okay, can we call it suffering? Yes. Okay, let's sit with that. Did you see what happened? I'm bringing it closer and closer home. You're not looking at the other person as the cause for my suffering, which is what the world functions on. You're taught to always point the finger. You're the one who caused me suffering. We never look at the context. We never look at the background story. What was happening? Did I have anything to do with this? What were the factors? Remember, we did at least 2 suttas on Paticcasamuppada. What is Paticcasamuppada? If not looking at things contextually, looking for the causal factors. What are the causes and conditions for this situation to arise? Well, he hit her, or he hit him, or she hit him. Okay. Linear or multi-contextual? If she wasn't there, if he wasn't there, would he have gotten hit? Very simple. If he didn't do that, if she didn't do that, if this element or this variable wasn't there, if it was different, would the outcome have been different? Yeah. Now you're using your right brain. This is dangerous, what's happening in the world. This is not over-exaggeration. This is what's happening. People used to have the capacity to look at situations and not be quick at conclusion. Oh, it's because of this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Did you weigh all the factors? Did you get all the details? Well, that's what they're saying, so that must be it. Really? Because I just tossed about 2 million, at least, years of human evolution out the window. Darwin is actually turning in his grave. There goes the scientific revolution. All of it out. The Dhamma is out the door, completely. If we call ourselves practitioners of the Dhamma, and we don't apply Paticcasamuppada in our lives and in our conclusions of what it is, and Google doesn't count, by the way. Google is one of the most organized, corrupt, channeled, controlled platforms. Everybody knows this. You know, the internet was invented by the US military, right? They had it for at least 40, 50 years, right? Before they released it to the world. So, again, these are facts that nobody wants to think about. Because it makes us, yeah, but it's kind of pushing the boundaries on what I've accepted as reality. And don't, Bhante, please, let's keep it here, in this. If you're getting that feeling, guess what it is? It's pushing the boundaries of your ignorance. Because that means you're not looking at things contextually. Because that's what the system is having us do. And it's invading our own practice. That's why I'm talking about this. That's why. Because it's affecting people's practice. Because I've seen people's practice go downhill during the last 3 years. People have become less able to practice Dhamma Vichaya. For me, that is cause for alarm. Serious alarm. So when I see a bhikkhu or someone giving a Dhamma talk, famous or non-famous, Ajahn, as if business as usual, they're going on and they're talking about kusala, kusala. What are you doing? Nobody's talking about what's happening in the world. That's terrible. What kind of a Dhamma is this? You're keeping the status quo. Remember what I was saying about acquiescing? Sitting in the room with big elephants, pink, yellow dots, all these things, elephants, sitting in the room with you, and you're not even talking about the elephants. I'm not talking about the yellow dots, pink dots. The elephants are not being acknowledged. If you notice, I'm talking about plural here. Oh, okay, so the Ajahn, the Venerable, the Bhante is not talking about this, so it should be fine. What is happening? No, it should not be fine. Your Dhamma Vichaya has to be penetrating every layer of your existence, every layer of life, everything you hear, everything that is presented to you, everything that you are told to believe. You must do your own research. Google doesn't count, by the way. Years ago when Google came out, like 20 years ago when we were in the university, even the professors at that time would tell us, at that time when Google was a little bit more reputable, don't look at the first 3 pages. They're irrelevant to what you're looking for your research. This was over 20 years ago, I'm talking. Look at page number 3, 6, to get to the crux of whatever it is that you're really looking, to the fleshy part, the meaty part of what you're looking. Because the first 3 have paid for that. My brother had a website company, had actually domain company. And people had to pay if they wanted their websites to be on the first page. When you put something in the search engine, let's say car. Well, people have paid to get their websites open first. It's not like by luck. Well, you're looking at it, you don't have time to go to the 3rd page. You just want to make a quick decision, including the news. Easy. Everybody talks about scientific papers these days. Nobody knows anything about science, apparently, because they never go beyond the title of the essay, the article. And everybody talks science, apparently. Everybody became a scientist overnight. The very simple thing that you need to do is to read the article, not the title. Because so many times you're going to actually discover, by the time you get to the conclusion, oftentimes, they will have to present, if not always, any conflict of interest at the end. And they have to present what members of society they selected as their subject. And truthfully present what the outcome of the research was, truthfully. In spite of the fact that the title says something totally different. Now, what people have been reading are the titles of articles. Terrible. That's how dumb we have become. And we say, well, science proves it. Well, where'd you get that? I'm curious. I like to ask why, which makes people very uncomfortable. Why? When I was a trainer, people would come and say, oh, I like to get 6-pack muscles, like in my abdomen, rectus abdominis, all these transverse muscles, all these obliques. I say, okay. Meanwhile, I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, I'm calculating contextually. Why, I would ask. And they would say, well, because it makes me look good and I can fit in better clothing. Okay, why? They say, because I would be more attractive to the opposite sex. Okay, that's legitimate. Why? What do you mean, why? Well, why? Well, because I feel good. When you feel good, what happens? I feel happy. We got to the point. It's not the rectus abdominis, the 6-pack muscles. You are looking to be happy. Let's work on that, while we're also working towards getting your 6-pack. See? We're not doing this work, though. We're lazy. As Dhamma students, we cannot afford to be lazy. You need to be smarter, wiser, and more courageous to not buy into whatever it is that they're throwing at you. Not to just bite it. bait and hook and everything. Use the Dhamma to understand life. And the Dhamma is not separate from the life that you're experiencing in the world today, especially. This is a difficult time. We're living in a much difficult time as a population, as humanity, than Lord Buddha's time. Do you know that? Or any of the eras, any of the time periods since then? Because there's an attack on all levels, especially the Dhamma. You might not realize it because nobody's talking about this. I have to talk about this. That's why I'm talking about this. So, no point in blaming someone for your suffering. Suffering is happening. Okay, let me learn from it. Period. That should be the end of your discussion with yourself. Don't look outside of you for your mess-ups. It's your fault. Okay, why? Let me not do them again. Where is the error? Okay, is there a pattern here? Okay, let's look at you're doing paticca-samuppada. It's not these fancy terms, upadana, sankhara, vedana. Who cares? Your life is the perfect example. Use your own vocabulary. Use your own emotions, your states of mind. Use satipatthana. That's where paticca-samuppada is, your life. Not in a book, not in a Dhamma book, not in a Dhamma talk, Dhamma sharing. It's in your life. Because unfortunately, when we're not finding a culprit, somebody to blame, we're inventing them these days. Which is sad. Which is sad. And the society and the advertising agencies, the news, the world, global politics is encouraging that mindset. These are not separate from the Dhamma. Please be able to realize that. This is not separate. Whatever I'm talking about is not separate from the Dhamma. It is very much merged into the Dhamma. It's become like milk and water, sadly. That's how deep it is, because they're affecting everything. Families are breaking apart. Do you know that? Family members are looking at each other with suspicion. So, everyone can feel suffering, but not everyone can understand it. Or at least tries to. This path, however, is for those who do, not for those who don't. Plain and simple. You can have the look, you can have the outfit, you can have the name, the upasaka, upasika name. You can go through all the routines. You can feel good about all the things that you're doing for the community. Nope. You're far away from the path. Unless you try to understand your own suffering and stop looking outside of you for the cause of it. And that has everything to do with understanding the Four Noble Truths, which comes through the practice of the Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness. And this is where I will stop and complete the Dhamma talks for this lovely series of days that make up this 10 days retreat. So I hope this was, not just this, but the suttas that I had selected for you to help you, to support you during this retreat, have been helping you to understand, to gain better understanding of your own experience, and the Dhamma especially. And yourself, that's it. Because I don't see a separation between you and the Dhamma. It's convincing the person to see that, oneself. So I would ask if there are any questions. I would try to answer. I will be giving the last talk here this Saturday on another sutta, which is part of the weekly Pali suttas that I had begun here about 4 months ago. So I forgot which one is. Oh, Aninja Sutta, yes. Aninja, immovable states. So, any questions? Or are you sparing me? Bhante is exhausted, so we shouldn't ask him questions. It's okay. Yes? Huh? Okay. Watch the mind. I know some of you, if not most of you, and it's natural, the last night of the retreat, people start getting more and more chatty, talkative. There's the excitement. It's almost like, holidays. It's like, yes, I'm free, type of a thing. We're almost there. We're out the gate, type of a thing. Be more interested in your mind and not what the other person is saying. Not what the other person is doing. Be more interested in looking at your own mind, your own behavior, and especially your own inner dialogue while they're talking. So this is compassionate ignoring, if you want to call it that. You're compassionately ignoring for the sake of higher purpose, meaning vipassana. You're actually doing satipatthana of your own thoughts. You're watching whether I have samma vacha or not. You're smiling, you're looking, you're nodding at them. Yes, yes, yes. Every once in a while you drop in and you start saying, okay, he's going to ask me questions afterwards. I'm not listening to him. Okay, I might have as well hear some of the words, but you're more interested in what's happening in your mind in relation to what they're saying. And this is just one example. When someone walks into your store, into your shop, into your office, into your board meeting, whatever it is, be more interested in not what they're wearing, what they're saying, how they look, how they smell, but what your body's reaction to all those things are. This is when you become truly practitioner of viveka, seclusion, in the midst of the hubbub of the noise of a modern living situation. You could be in the middle of a metropolitan area, in the middle of New York City or Tokyo or Calcutta or KL, and you can still be secluded. In the middle of the city, outside. You could still be very secluded. So don't tell yourself, oh, in order for me to be secluded, I have to do this. No, it's a mental state. Don't forget that.